I'm really looking forward to talking today with Todd Fedoruk. He's a former NHL player, and now he coaches youth sports and also works with New Life Addiction Services to help young people in recovery from mental health issues and also substance abuse issues. And I'm really looking forward to his perspective on the benefits and risks of playing sports at every level and what parents can do to ensure that their kids not only get the best experiences in playing sports, but also learn the lessons that Todd considers most vital and which young people should use throughout their lives. I hope you'll join us. So Todd, thank you so much for talking with me today. I know you're a super busy person. I know you're working as a motivational speaker and also at a treatment center for substance abuse, all of which I want to talk to you about. But before that, you were a professional hockey player. And so I'd love to start with that, if you don't mind, because I'm dying to ask you, what you really liked about being a pro athlete and if you miss it.
Well, it's well, exactly what it is. It's a dream, a childhood dream, that continues to develop through the love of the game, hard work, dedication, all the things that it requires. I mean, there's a standard road to success. That's, all the things you need to do in order to achieve that level. I had to do so. There was a lot of pride in achieving that, and it is living the dream. I mean, it was everything. It didn't let me down at all, and I do miss it. Yeah, I mean, you miss the competition. You miss elements of the camaraderie amongst your teammates. So I think there's parts that I do miss, but there's parts I don't miss.
Yeah, what don't you miss? Like, what were your least favorite parts? I mean, I would imagine the travel would have been hard.
I think, well, I guess on the bigger picture, like for doing what I did, I guess the thing that I didn't like about it was like ultimately, I can't really wrap it up into something else other than hurting people. Like that's what I did. Like, and I was good at it, but I did it within a certain set of rules and guidelines, obviously, but that's probably the one thing I don't miss. I'm not that type of guy. So, but when you're chasing a dream and you want to achieve it, you're willing to go to certain lengths to achieve that. And I think that's part of the reason why I had I guess what I would consider a successful career and longevity.
So you were considered like the enforcer on the team?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, the fighter, the guy that would make sure that my teammates felt, I guess, secure from certain styles of play. Guys could intimidate. Guys were big. Guys were mean. Hockey's a very intense sport, and the guys that you're competing against, they love the sport just as much as you. They put in just as much as you. So if there's that understanding, then and you play within a certain set of rules within the rules, you can get pretty competitive, and that's okay. That's the agreement between you. So I miss all that stuff about the game, but that's an element that's there. There's a certain level of respect for everybody, and I like that element of the game, and then enforcing that respect. Like as you as I understand it, the tougher you are, the less you actually have to fight. Right? If you establish yourself and you play a certain way, you can talk to guys, and you don't necessarily have to get your reputation precedes yourself.
Right.
So, but that's hard to do, right? It's hard to do because you still have to play a certain way that draws attention to you to get the other team off. Yeah. And it's a hard part of the game, but if you're willing to do it, it's living the dream, right? Sacrifice, I guess.
Well, that's it. It sounds to me like it didn't come naturally to you. Like maybe you didn't have that sort of like hardcore aggression that came naturally to you, but it was something that you had to do. It was sort of a pact that you made in order to play at that level.
Yeah, I think under the right circumstances, yeah, I was willing to do that. I think from a sense of like violence, no, but spirit, yeah. Like my mother always says that I was a spirited young lad, and I was a hard one to keep sitting in school, and I was high octane all the time. It was go go go. Couldn't keep me in one place at one time. So, I mean, if you look at the sport of hockey and the physical demands, it was perfect for me. So,
Perfect.
yeah, I liked the fast speed and pace of the game. So it was perfect for me. Um,
So that suited you in terms of your temperament.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you look back at that experience, was there anything that you regret or any decisions that you wish you made differently?
Well, no, because you can't. This is such a common question, and I just, if you really have any regrets, so then what? I guess you can only have regrets if you're not happy with where you are today. And today, my life is good. It's rich, and it's rich because of the people that are in it and the things that I've gone through. So, um, I don't regret things. Um, I just I know that there is um, things that I need to be preventative of now to make sure what I did was worth it, right?
How
Because
so?
it's different. You have kids. I have a family. The things that I did were different than some of the rest of the athletes. So preparing for a fight is not preparing for a game. Knowing to do that, and then like a lot of the damages and injuries, like uh, from concussions and traumatic brain injury, they're calling it now. And then just plus some of the things with some of the guys that are within the smaller fraternity of fighters that deal with some issues. Is it the role? I don't know, but there seems to be a lot of common threads with some of the guys that I'd played with and some of the problems they have in life. But I'm not one of those guys. I mean, I have my issues, and I've got to be proactive about things. But having regrets, no, because I did love what I did. I did love what I was doing, and I did love the players that I had played with, and I mean, I also didn't have anywhere else to go. Like hockey was kind of it, and I committed to that early on, and had a lot of people supporting me. So, and again, it comes back to the dream. So, yeah, I don't regret things, because they're part of who I am today. So, I think they
Yeah,
become asked. Yeah, you can't take regrets. You can't regrets or blames, and they're just weights that you can carry around. You may not necessarily need to, but you have to acknowledge them as part of where you're at today and how you got to where you're at today.
right. So it sounds like you've done the
It's
work
helpful for me.
in order to
Yeah,
kind of evolve and to be where you are today.
yeah, great word. Yeah.
So did that figure into your motivational speaking? I mean, tell me about that. I'm so interested in that. Like,
Well,
who's
I've
your
never been actually labeled as like a motivational speaker. I know that there's a sense of responsibility for um, some of the people that I'm close with, that um, we make sure that if there's other people that suffer from some of these things, that we're kind of there to I guess be there to help or listen. And if there's some things that we can identify with, we kind of got an inside track to helping them. And I'm of that understanding, and I try to. I wasn't always that way, but I really try to do that today, and it's made all the difference in my world, in my life. But I really find that I enjoy it. So I get to do it in a facility that actually can start people off. So yeah, there is a little bit of motivation. I mean, it's when people get here, they don't realize that how courageous of an act it is to walk through the door and to changing everything that they are about themselves, because um, the stigma of substance use disorder and behavioral health facilities is exactly that. You don't come here necessarily because you want to. You come here because this is a place where you need help, or you don't know where else to get it. Like you kind of, I don't want to see you end up here, because that's still adding to the stigma. I want to be dead against stigma. I think it's a barrier to care. But the demoralization that every person feels when they do suffer from substance use disorder, or behavioral health issues is a part of it. So we have to motivate them. You got to recognize that just walking through that threshold is the biggest thing you've ever done. You don't know it yet. You don't see it yet. But whatever got you here is something greater than you, because what you've been doing got you here, and you got to just stick and stay. So what we do here at this place is get people medically off of some of the stuff that they're on, and I see there's a lot of value in guys like me doing that. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
You have a lot to offer, and it sounds like you get a lot out of that too. It's very
absolutely gratifying. Yep. Yeah, it is. It keeps you grateful, it keeps you grounded, lets you know where you can get right back into that position if you let this malady, this disease come back to you. So you got to stay ever vigilant and just work on a daily basis. That all you really have is right now, and this keeps it real fresh for you. So it is a job. You have to be you have to have some professional attributes of approach and how you balance what you leave at work and bring home, because it can be traumatic, because it's traumatic to the people coming here. So but it is also it keeps it green, and again, if you get to see somebody really turn their life around, and then their kids come in and the family comes in and people are happier, you realize how many people you affect that you don't realize you're affecting while you're in the midst of the problem with your use or whatever. So coming out of that is overwhelming. So you need a team to help, and that's the medical procedure that we provide. And hopefully, in the short time that we have with them here, they get to go on kind of not worrying about things moving forward, or prepared with tools to go take on life.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you plan to go into this kind of work when you retired, or how it came about that you started doing this work.
Well, yeah, I know I didn't actually want to get into this field of work. You hear about guys doing it and obviously the value, but no, I initially got involved with hockey. Most guys do, and they're done hockey, they don't know what to do, so they stay involved with hockey. But I was on the business side, so I did I guess a little more with community development and stuff with Flyers at the time. And then you learn a little bit about the sales game and the marketing game and the entertainment game and fans, and I had good mentors, and no, I didn't want to get into this industry. I wanted to become a businessman, see what my value was, apply the same drive that I had playing into something that I could do now to be successful. And it just kind of turned into this actually through what I was trying to do with the NHL, because as a player, I'd noticed a gap in people with issues like mine, with substance use and behavioral health issues, that are players, not necessarily having a network of individuals that could kind of plug them into recovery communities, or connect them with a good network of physicians or doctors that can help them deal with whatever issues they may have in that realm. So it was almost like an EAP or a peer coach on site, but strictly for this in a confidential manner, regionally based. That was kind of the idea. And then it kind of COVID had hit, and an opportunity presented itself with Dr. Zavon. And it was actually when I met Dr. Zavon that I don't know. He's a special man. So it was just, I think, the way that he approached treating people like us, and the amount of time he wanted to spend with the individual to help them understand of the medical danger, but also the medical process. And he spends 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half, with a patient who's more confused and overwhelmed with what's going on in their life than they can understand. So having somebody like him, and his demeanor and his approach from day one, I was always like, I'm really happy that it's a guy like you that's here for us. So, and his commitment to the Medicaid population, which is something that you don't hear of because you're not supposed to talk about those things. They're business orientated and they don't have to do them. He does them. We have a moral
Yeah.
obligation as a company to make sure that we're always responsible. I care for everybody. This thing doesn't discriminate, and we're
Mm.
just aligned up. And he's a good man. And honestly, there's this little part of me that just likes to protect him. So I get to do a little bit of that.
You do.
Yeah,
I was
in my
wondering what the link was, and there you
yeah,
have it, right?
and he's surrounded by good people, and I like their approach. They want to use science. They want to use evidence. They want to look at some different ways because treatment is hard. You know, it's really hard, and the compounds
Really
that are
hard.
out there are dangerous and it's poison, and you need a medical procedure to help these people to just get to a baseline of
Yes.
clarity to understand. There's a lot of misdiagnosis. There's mental health is popular in schools. Like, it's just crazy to have a diagnosis is common, and it doesn't need to be. You're growing up too. Like, let's not forget that's a mental health crisis in itself. I remember going through puberty. Like, it's just
It's a tough
I don't
time.
know. He's the right type of guy. I was in the right type of position, and sometimes you just kind of paths align. And then Joel
Yes.
as well. Yeah, Joel's the third cog of the wheel. And the three of us together somehow just keep moving forward with the support of people around us, I think, more than kind of what we do. But the passion is definitely here. So that's why I do this with him, right? I've
Yes.
never been anywhere else. I've never really wanted to do it anywhere else. I ain't going anywhere else. I'm Joe's guy for the rest until he rides off into the sunset. So
Well, you're
I really
doing
like
so
that
much
too.
good.
Yeah, yeah, it makes for a good foundation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you mentioned young athletes. And as you might know, that's as a psychologist, I specialize in seeing adolescents, young adults, and parents, parenting kind of things. And so I'm kind of wondering from your perspective whether you see a link between youth sports and substance abuse.
Well, of course, yes, of course. One, athletes, competitive athletes, of course, put them at a different level. People that want competition will be more aggressive. Will be they're the way they need to do that. I think obviously with injuries, they're exposed to
Painkillers?
at a higher rate. Their exposure. So
Yeah.
I mean, look, they're humans too. If they have major surgery because they blew out their shoulder, they're going to be exposed. You can turn things on. You know, it's very simple. These compounds are so strong, and they're irresponsibly prescribed. I don't know if it's still irresponsibly prescribed, but nonetheless, the kids and I think the athletes are exposed at a higher rate, and I think also the performance anxiety, like those
Oh,
elements too, and then the stress of um, parents wanting their kids to do well,
oh, we're going to get
and
into that.
well, and parents arguing where kids need to figure things out. It's not fair for a child to have to argue against the parent of another child. Let the kids figure it out is something that we miss. But the athlete, I think in general, is supposed to represent, especially at the highest level, the epitome of what the body can do. We're an example of the uniqueness and of our strengths and qualities from a physical manner. So then promote that. If you're going to be an athlete, be an athlete. Present healthy eating. Present that I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I'm at the party at the school. Now I'm an athlete. Then be one,
Right.
right? Don't just be half-assed. Like, be an athlete and have a sense of responsibility, and that's your thing. And I'll hold a sense of responsibility to be the one that sees the guy. Because listen, if you're a little bit tougher than most because you're playing football and you're on the linebackers, you see a dealer and you see he's on the school, you can go talk to that kid and you can say, hey, I'm not going to bully you, but I'm going to make sure you know that I'm watching what you're doing
Right.
and who you're hurting. Because I'm an athlete and I make sure that I protect my teammates, but also my school. There's a sense of pride that the athletes can have. And I'm with it right now because I think 3 of my kids are athletes. My daughter's a double varsity athlete, and she wants things to be done right, and I think that's where things still have a shot at getting handled the way it should things should get handled, which is just fair on the court, right? It's something that's obviously I'm biased to that, right? A lot of my lessons were learned on the field by a coach as my father, an assistant coach as my mother, and a GM as my grandfather, right? That's the dynamic of my family. So
Oh,
I
wow.
have a high value in the coaches that I've had in my life,
Yeah.
and I think the athlete does have a sense of responsibility to help people in that manner. It's good to be healthy. It's better to be
It
healthy and
is.
don't do drugs. And it's okay to have mental health issues too, because I do too. I might be the star in the center of the arena with 20,000 people on the feet, but I can tell you right now, I was the loneliest guy at center ice with people cheering for me. So you never
Really?
know what's going on in another
No, you
person's
don't.
shoes. And I think the athlete has a platform because people are entertained by them. Just like you see people that are actors where they necessarily shouldn't say some things, the athlete has a sense and a responsibility to say, hey, this is what I do to take care of my body so it can perform and do the things that you enjoy. I
Yeah.
don't do drugs. It's not like a no do drugs campaign. It's like, I don't do this stuff unless I need to because, and then you can go into the real issues that these kids are faced with, which is ultimately death. And that's the real tragedy is that when I was going through high school, you were going through high school, the friend that died usually died in a drunk driving, and
An accident.
it wasn't as often as you'd see it today. Well, what if you had 4 or 5 kids that one year you were sitting in class with that overdosed on drugs, and you don't see them there in school? I don't know what that's like for a
Right.
kid 16 and 17 years old. These people are dying from doing drugs. It's poison with fentanyl.
Yes.
It's another animal, and I think using the athlete as a conduit to even plant that seed that this is dangerous. It's
Did you see
poison,
the
and you need to
article,
be ultra advocates against this stuff.
Todd?
Like,
Did you see the article in the New York Times just yesterday that came out? It was about fentanyl, and it was about the youth rates of overdose. And
mhm.
it's astronomical now. Overdoses, accidental overdoses have become the number one killer of youth from age 18 to 25. And it's
Yep,
almost all fentanyl, and it's almost all purchased from on the internet or local dealers. They're trying to get Percocet or tranquilizers, either pain meds or tranquilizers or ADHD medicine, and they don't know even that they're using fentanyl.
there's they're involved. It needs to even at the drug the dealers level. They don't know what and where the stuff that they're getting illicitly is coming from. There's street chemists, there's pill pressers. The problem with fentanyl is there's poison.
Yep.
Kids, abstinence will never ever be something that you can probably promote to kids, but education is something that they have to know. They have to know that it's not the same environment. You don't get to experiment. You don't get to try a bag of weed because it might be laced with fentanyl and you might die. You don't get to try the carts because they're starting to put fentanyl in them, and they're not knowing what they're doing because of the compounds, and kids are dying because if you have a heart problem, there's a little bit of fentanyl in that cart. We just had somebody die in Pennsylvania last year, 17-year-old kid celebrating after a soccer game,
Mm-hmm.
championship soccer game with his team, died because he had a heart problem and there's fentanyl in one of the carts. So it is
Right.
happening, and the athlete has a responsibility to get in front of this. I do think that someone's got to stand up, and the conduit of the athlete has a platform. You're seeing it more in professional sports, is smashing the stigma of mental
Yeah.
health issues too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Well,
yeah, knowledge is power.
you're saying that athletes really have to be role models. And I understand that, but I think parents also need to be educated about fentanyl, and they need to talk to their kids very straightforwardly about this. and say, look, I
Yeah.
know, you may want to experiment, but this is not something that you should be doing. Kids your age are dying from this. Look at these articles. These are scientific facts. This is not something you can take a chance of doing,
Yeah.
because you may die. It's not like, you're binge drinking, which I'm not promoting, but alcohol, you kind of know what you have to learn what your limit is, or if you can drink at all, right? But with something like this, you can't take the chance of even trying it out and seeing what it's like. So I think parents
Exactly.
need to know
Like
this.
I just, it's a sad day that the kids can't experiment. Like, I'm not promoting drug use, but again, when they're coming into their own, any child, any kid that's becoming an adult needs the freedom to get out there, try things, experience things. Taking that from them is taking the experience of life away from them. You're very supposed to be there to manage and maintain it, really,
Yeah.
as a parent, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not that environment anymore. This is it again. I call it poison in my house, because
Yeah.
it's not, you're not going to a party in somebody's backyard having a beer and then find somebody smoking something, and that's how you try it with your friends. It's not like that, because you don't know what's out there and how you're going to get it now, right? So it is something that they have to be educated on, and aware of where it is, and what their kids are doing. Like, you have to be more open with it, because it is rampant. New laws are changing. THC and those compounds are not necessarily good for kids. I'm dead against those developmental aids putting anything into an adolescent's body. It's
Unfortunately,
already messed up. Why add to it? Like, the
I
poor kids,
know.
you know?
Unfortunately, I see so many teenagers using THC, and sometimes their brains just are not. It just does something very bad to their brains, and I've seen a couple of kids develop schizophrenia
Yeah,
from using THC, whereas 30, 45, 50 years ago, people used to grow it in their backyard, and it was almost an herb, and it was not as toxic as it is today.
yeah,
It's 15 times stronger, and it's laced with all sorts of things. um,
yes.
it's really wreaking havoc. I see so many kids like doing great in high school and then all of a sudden going downhill because they're smoking weed all the time, and
Yeah,
they're developing memory problems, and they're apathetic, they have no motivation, they're sleeping all the time. It's kind of
they're
becoming,
stoned.
yeah, they're just high basically all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about something else that you mentioned before, which is the competition that you're seeing in youth sports, because I've been seeing a huge change. So several decades ago, when I started seeing teenagers, I almost always recommended sports because I thought they were so beneficial. It was a way for kids to blow off steam, get rid of stress. They got to learn a skill. It was
Yeah,
healthy for them. And they had better self-esteem because they were able to be on a team and help a team. There was a sense of collegiality, like you mentioned before. And also, it was a way of making friends. And I would say, I don't know how long ago it was, but definitely in the past, I would say 5 to 7 years, I started feeling like instead of team sports being something that I would recommend as a benefit, that I was seeing more kids come into my practice because of problems with team sports. It was doing more harm than good. And what I'm hearing is that teams have gotten so competitive that, first of all, unless you feel like you can be a pro, a lot of teams don't want to even be on the team. Um, a lot of the sports now have become year-round events where you're required to get all this extra training and go to camps. You can't do any other sport. So you have to specialize very early. And then the competition, the teams are run like basically like pro teams. And
mm,
it, what I'm hearing is that a lot of kids are being bullied by their teammates. if they're not as good. Like a lot of the kids who are really serious about sports and want to get recruited by college, and they're happy to have scouts come and everything. If they have players on their team who are not as good, they feel like they're putting them in a bad light and reducing their chances of success. And so they're being really mean and bullying kids who are not quite up to those standards. And that's just one problem.
Hmm.
Are you seeing that? I mean, your kids are in sports.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see one, politics are way too involved in sport, especially youth sports. It's the one thing that it's just that it doesn't mix. You can't have politics in sport. Right is right and right is wrong. Winner, loser. There's That's the way it is, and that's the way it should always be. But yeah, the competitive nature is more about fitting a model of what it is to be an athlete rather
Mhm.
than finding the athletes that are exceptional. So you'd even see it at the level where coaches would suppress for not abiding by, right? Like, oh, they're doing this, this, and this, and you're not doing the extra, then you're not committed enough, right?
Yeah.
Wait a second. You might just have a natural there. They don't need to do extra. They just love the game. Don't suppress. I think the problem is that the only job that a coaches or an organization of youth sports, um, running any youth sports, so the only job of the adults that are associated with that is to keep those kids in love with the game or make them fall in love with the game for as long as possible. Because at
That's
those
not
ages, those
happening.
13, 14, and 15, 16, that could be the one thing that keeps them from going the wrong way with things. And it
Mhm.
gives them an outlet that is physical, that is palpable, that is feelable for some things, and that might have to be with friends in a competitive setting. It might have to be with the struggles. Like, look, you can have a comfortable conversation in with sports, right? And you can have a comfortable confrontation in sports, and that's where it's safe. So you can learn about certain things
Yes.
that apply to life. It is hard, you know. Let's not forget that.
I don't think that
There's only
every
750 NHL contracts, so we have to understand that the problem in and of itself is that there's $1 billion industry of people that are paid to find good athletes. Anything you do as a parent or as a student, it has no bearing. If you play and you're good, they'll find you. If it's all about other bullshit, they'll find that too, and it won't last. It's just there's like a perception on the ladder. Just let the kids play. Let the kids play. Let the kids develop. Stay
if
out of it,
only if
and
only
make sure
that
you
were
keep
the
your
case.
adults in check. Make sure you keep the coaches in check.
Ah,
Make sure
so
that
thank
they're
you.
level of inclusion. Yeah. So
Oh,
it's
I
you with
want
the
to talk
coaches.
to I would
Yeah.
like to ask you about this before you go on, Todd, okay? Because the role model that you feel the need to be for other people and how you want your kids to be for their peers. That's not what's happening right now. I mean, the idea of sportsmanship is really, I think, unfortunately, it sounds almost quaint. What I'm hearing is that I'm hearing from students who are athletes, students who are managers of teams, and I'm reading actually in the paper about the shortage of refs they have for student sports now, because
Yeah.
it's so horrendous what's going on there. The parents, especially, are abusing the refs and the coaches. The players themselves are cursing the refs, cursing not their coach, but the other coaches. And it just seems like it's an environment that has become very uncivilized. And those values that sports have always held, especially for young people, of abiding by the rules and treating people with respect and valuing individual commitments, but also working as a group, as a team. Seems
Mm.
like really hard to achieve those things right now. What is going on?
Inclusive is a problem when you're trying to find. So you're trying to find greatness. You can't be inclusive on the whole when you're trying to find exceptional. athletes. That's the problem. Not everybody's cut out for it. What
Right.
needs to be brought across, I think, at that level is showing up is really all you need to do. If you don't make it, you showed up. Like, that's the message. Because half the people that get into sports may not be athletes. They may be a different kind of athlete. They may be solitary. They might like swimming, diving, tennis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, might be different. You may find they might not like that setting at all.
What about the parent who wants their kid to get the benefits of sports, but isn't necessarily pushing them to get a scholarship for college? They just want them to have a good experience on the high school level. Is it possible to do that these days?
If the kid makes it, the failure is as much as a part of sport and even becoming a good athlete. So yeah, if you want to the experience, sometimes the experience is this sport's not for you. If you really love this sport, get back to work hard, and you'll be rewarded for your effort, right? You work hard and it presents on the court in the sport. See, that's the thing that you can control. Is you can control how much effort you put into things. You can't really like there's a lot of things you can't control, but as an athlete, you can control like the effort, you know. And then you hear stories over time and time again. There's been movies time and time again. Rudy, the guy that works, like there's something to say for the athlete's spirit. See, that guy doesn't even make it in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
So that story of what athletes is, what a team is, and what it's supposed to be a team is you put your weakest link on because it's the right thing to do. Like, that's valuable. That's extremely valuable. So I think
It
it's
is.
important for the parents to understand failure is also part of it. Failure might make your kid want it more. Let him learn that lesson. It's the best thing for him. It's hard and you want to protect them from that, but don't. Because your parents
Exactly.
probably didn't do that. They let you make those choices on your own. And it's a good place. But again, they have to be trusting of the coach that you're going to let me raise your kid for you.
But
That's what
so
it
many
comes down
parents.
to. Even at the college level, there's other emotions, there's other parts of being a kid that come up with the athlete. So I can see why every parent wants their kid to be included in that, but sometimes that's what causes the problem is the inclusion. If you're taken away from the value of why you want your kid there in the first place.
Well, that's some of the politics that I think parents play these days to get their kids on these elite teams. And if things don't go right, who do they blame? Instead of saying to the kid, you need to work harder, they say to the coach, you need to play my kid more, or you're
Yeah.
playing favorites, and things like that, which is creating such an unhealthy environment for kids. And also, kids are getting this message, as you say, that they can't fail. I mean, I've had teens tell me that on the way home from a swimming meet, that the mother will say, I can't believe how disappointed I am. You were 3 seconds away from beating
Mhm.
your, and so the kid feels like they're responsible for their parents' happiness and pride, rather than their own.
Yeah,
I'm sure you see this all the time.
absolutely. Yeah, there's a dynamic that the parents don't necessarily um, express to their kids. We talk about that all the time with my kids. We want them the joy of success. We want to have them experience the joy of putting in the effort and then seeing the reward after. And that is something that's hard to achieve, and it's special. That's what we teach our kids. But I can understand that. If you play my kid more, he's going to get better. Sometimes the parents, and that's what also, if your kid doesn't make it or they're not part of that team, get off your ass and start a rec team. That's the problem too. Like, you can't just expect your kid to become an all-American, right?
Right.
Because you're getting him involved in sport. If there's not a place for him to play, or he's not as developed, or he's more developed, either way, volunteer to coach. Because that's the other problem too, is that there's rec everywhere. Don't hand your kids off. If they're not that good, and like, I coached softball. I coached good 10U softball. So if you want your kids to if you want your kids to get better, get the glove, get off your arse, get in the backyard, throw the ball at them, right?
Right.
Your
And have fun.
responsibility. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And then empower them with what it's like to try something that you might not be comfortable trying, but listening to the instruction, going through the steps and the procedures in order to execute something, and then getting better and doing something that when you started you couldn't do, and you told me I could never be able to do this, I'm the worst. And then having them become one of the best throwers on the team. Come on. I mean, that's what I signed up for, right? Because it doesn't matter if you win. It has nothing to do with anything. This happened in practice. You can throw a ball. You can throw a ball, and that's the greatest thing that we've achieved today. And that girl's still playing too. Her name's Joy. How about that? But that's what it's about. And you gotta understand that that's the process of becoming an athlete. And it's not necessarily sport. It's about putting effort into doing something that you want to do because you want to be a part of and whatnot. It's the small things and it's little wins, especially at those developmental stages. Because the confidence that you can give any kid when they're like, I can't believe how far I can throw, right? It's like a knowledge. It's like they know now they can try other things. They know that if they put work in and they try things and they listen, it's a great application.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of life. If they stumble and fall, if they fail, if they succeed, all of that, these are all fantastic lessons. That's what sports was all about, I thought, until this sort of professionalism kind of took over.
Well, money and information, I think, have a lot to do with that. There's a lot of money in youth sports. Kids now have access to do the same things that the professional athletes are doing. So if you have that knowledge, why can't you become, if you do it 10,000 times, but there's an element of gift. And
yes, absolutely.
You're just not cut out for this, right? I'm not flying to the moon. I played hockey, right? So, but that's you can't suppress that, I think. And that's one thing that is different in sport. Sport helps with grit. People don't have grit right now for some reason. I don't know what it is.
That's right.
Things are easier every generation, so something has to give, and that element of grit is displaying. I think the lack of it is displaying in like mental health, but I don't think it's mental health. It's just like I don't want to work. I don't want to put in effort. I want the easy way. There's an easier, softer way to everything.
Well,
my parents can ask for me, or they can do this, and
I would offer that it also goes back to the whole idea of failure, because I see this academically for students, and it's in every area. If they don't feel like they can succeed, they don't want to try to do something. They would rather be seen as stupid or lazy or not interested than risk making a commitment and saying, yes, I'm going to go for this, and then not making it. That seems to create so much shame and so much fear of displeasing parents that kids are basically paralyzed. They can't move forward, and it's in everything. I see kids, graduating from college, and they don't know what to do. They're so afraid of doing anything and not being good at it, or not finding their niche in their first job, or having to change jobs. It's terrifying to them.
They're not prepared for what the reality of life is. Life on life is hard, period.
What would you say if you could give one message to parents who have kids in sports? What's like one piece of advice that you think is really helpful and universal?
I mean, just stay out of it. Stay out of it.
I love
your
that.
job as a parent to support them, and watch your kid develop in ways that you'll never be able to develop them, because they're developing themselves in that state. So be supporting, but be responsible in who and where you put them, and that can be hard also. Like which program you put them with. Like be wary. Like if it doesn't feel right away, get out of there. You're right as a parent. You're right. Get out of there. If you can't find somewhere well for your kid, then sometimes it might be about your kid. Try something else, but find something for them to do, because otherwise you're going to be stuck on the phone. Get them involved. There's a lot more than just physical sports, there's clubs, groups, but get
Oh
them
yeah.
involved in social groups and stuff like that. That's the one thing I would do is just, yeah, stay out of it. Stay out of it because you're going to want to get involved. You're going to want to protect them. The
Right.
problem is you don't see in your eyes, they're number one and they are great. And if they're not, then you're not a good parent. But that's what they should be as your kids. So you're going to be blinded. Stay out
Right.
of it. You'll be
Right.
blinded by love
Exactly.
if you're a good parent. So the fact that you care, and that's a lot of the coaches and the programs that are running these. So you got to have good people at the core of those programs. And I've been lucky around this area to be involved enough, but also enough to understand who's at the core of some of the youth programs and school programs. School's a little different than the youth programs.
Right.
School, you kind of do have to play to the political inclusion stuff, but then again, it does create more issues amongst itself. But just parents stay out of it. Let the coach and kids figure it out on the field themselves. They're probably figured it out better than us, anyways. And support. Like I've learned that myself. I always want to get involved, implement my knowledge because of I have the authority being a professional athlete. Well, you forget the fact that I'm a father, so
Your father first.
yeah,
And
my father first,
right.
and then
Right.
yeah, it's better to keep my mouth shut and let my daughter speak because she usually says smarter things than me anyways.
What self-control that takes to do that. I know.
Yeah, it does because I got a couple people that are and again volunteers, right? Some of them give their time not knowing a thing
Right.
of what they're doing, but they don't care. They didn't play sports. The nerd might end up with the best jock and he might want to be the only guy that's going to coach. So, be compassionate and provide knowledge, because there's a lot of people that have experience in sport, especially in my age group, I think with that 40 to 50 age group, coming into their own. Sports to us was that place for competitive jockiness and the jocks are the jocks and stuff like that. So it's not there anymore, but don't get involved. Let it be sport.
That is great advice. And that was going to be my last question for you, but now I have one more question for you. And that's this. So many parents are in a dilemma very, very often where they have encouraged their kids to play a sport. And it pertains not just to sports, but let's say a musical instrument or dance or something. And they've invested many, many, many years in this sport. The parents are emotionally invested. They're financially invested. Oftentimes their social life revolves around their kids and their pursuits. And so then at some point during adolescence, the kid says, you know what? I'm done. This is not right for me. I'm quitting. And parents are very often in turmoil about this because they want their kids to continue and they encourage them to continue because they say, you're not a quitter. But at what point do you think, what are the other things that parents should consider? At what point would you advise parents that maybe the kid has decided that, in fact, this is not something that is right for them and it's legitimate and valid?
Well, I think it's probably at that coming of age, 13, 14, 15.
That's
again,
it.
If they're going to be athletes, they're going to determine in those ages if they are, I think. I went to my last camp because my dad wanted me to. I wanted to go work on the rigs. So, yeah, that's what it comes down to. So I think there's an element that the athlete should, if your parents have committed, be a good kid and maybe finish out the season because it's about commitment. Finish out your season, but as a parent, listen, know your kid. My dad knew I did not want to quit. He just knew I was going through a tough time with what happened last season.
Right.
I had an injury.
Right.
And it was summertime. He always knew better than me. I didn't know that at the time, but you're supposed to know that for your kid in these moments. So empower them to make the choice, make sure that they stay committed to the team and stuff, because that's what a good person would do. But if they're ready to quit and move on, you got to listen as a parent. So when they're ready to quit, you can, if you know your kid, you're going to support them in that. You're going to push them to what they're going towards, because that's when you're finding out who they are. So it's important.
Exactly.
They might find out that this isn't for me. I'm not into it anymore. But yeah, you don't get to quit, and it's not about you as a parent either. You're just there again as a supporting cast, and if you know and you're a good parent, and those people are still friends with you, they're still friends with you. Or like there's a group of kids that my son grew up with, that the parents were close. We still get together every year. It doesn't matter about the kids,
Right.
And that's what you teach your kids as parents. So, geez, I can't believe this is turning into a parent thing that I'm telling people. But it's just my experience. I want these people in my life because I actually like them. And I like the fact that our kids went to school together and we're close. And we were close. So you guys, kids can hate each other. I found some friends too. And if you find friends as parents, it's not because your kids are playing sports. Your kid is not a representation of you. Sometimes that's what happens with parents.
That's you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. That's not necessarily the case. And you can't put that pressure on your kid either.
Correct.
They're not you.
And also, you're not living vicariously through their dreams, right? We don't need our kids to make us successful. That's up to us.
Yeah.
We don't have to put that on our kids. It's a big burden.
Yeah.
So I have really learned that you have put to good use all of the knowledge that you gained as a pro hockey player, both in your help with, helping substance abuse treatment patients, and also with your own kids. You've really put into good use how to be a supportive parent and allow your kid to take the lead and teach them all of the good skills of being a good citizen through their teamwork. Thank you so much for talking with me.
It was a very nice talk. I really enjoy these talks. I think they're important. I think they need to happen more. I think knowledge is power. And if the kids have access to all the information, give them the best stuff that you can have. And it's about this stuff. It's okay if you got problems. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to reach out for help. And the resources are always there. Hope is always there. No matter how old you are, right? They all have brains and they can all go sideways.
So true.
All right.
Thank you so much.